Stigmatization and language rights. What we notice today, generally and globally, is that there has been a shift from stigmatization because of a language one speaks to language rights that are upheld by international organizations and different institutions which might be operating regionally or within a nation. Now, more often than not, there might be the case that in certain countries, even now, a stigma might be attached to a language. When a stigma is attached and when this becomes almost embedded in the culture, then the speakers of that language become ashamed of their own language and they have serious identity problems, which is beyond the scope of this module, but which we will come back to later. Bilingualism, attitudes toward bilingualism are changing over time, but in some countries the change might be slow. However, this change will always be triggered if there are certain personal rewards of knowing more than one language and not just knowing one dominant language. Language maintenance, how much people maintain their language, will depend on the rewards that are available with employability. For instance, taking the example of Pakistan, you might like to teach them in Sindhi or in Saraiki or in Punjabi. The parents themselves will not like their children to study in these schools, as you yourself would not like your children to study in these schools, until and unless you can actually foresee in the language policy that the opportunities for employment increase if you know certain regional languages. Now, having said that, your attitude towards a certain language or the stigma that is attached to a certain language may change over time. It is always evolving, depending on the global change or a national change in political ideologies. For instance, taking the example of Pakistan or the subcontinent, there was a time when Persian was highly valued and almost all the Muslims knew Persian. Even your high-class Hindus felt a certain pride in knowing Persian, but gradually it was Urdu that became the identity of this Muslim movement for a separate country, and it acquired another status that was not there before. Movements for language rights are all over the place, in education, in government institutions, and in international organizations. This is being voiced constitutionally by the governments. So you have 11 official languages in Africa. You have 4 official languages in Switzerland. In Pakistan, you have separate languages operating differently. For instance, you still have English as the official language, but Urdu as your national language, and the government sort of encourages or has given this leeway to the provincial languages to encourage regional languages. International organizations, lots of work being done over here, especially by UNESCO, in highlighting the importance of language rights. Now, what do we mean by language rights? Well, primarily what we mean is that the children from any group or any ethnic community have a right to have education in their own language, have a right to access information in their own right. They have a right to their own identity, to maintain their identity as a group. they have a right to non-discrimination. So they have a right to have equal access to information, may it be health, may it be politics, anything, any belief. So the main thing is, because all the information is filtered through language, then the access to that language or access to the languages they would like to learn, and the right to maintain their own languages and to know about their context in their own language is their right. However, change will come when benefits of bilingualism are actually experienced and bilingualism is officially valued. So it is not really important how much or what different languages you teach in school unless and until specifically in the context of Pakistan, people can actually see the benefit in terms of social standing and economic standing that comes from learning regional languages. And one should aim to add additive bilingualism rather than subtractive bilingualism. That is, learning of more languages rather than trying to chip off the language that the child brings into school to teach them, for instance, English language in Pakistani context.